You heard that they refused,
and they turned
money,
it down.
Right?
They turned it down. They
Right.
didn't initially, but after the last clip that we just showed, after that, they're like, no, turn this money down. You're not buying this off, you know?
Right.
Kind of in poor taste, not even showing up and then just thinking, well, let's throw some money at those Jews. They like money.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the What Are They Gonna Say Now podcast. It's kind of a emergency edition, I'd say. We didn't really plan on doing an extra recording this week, but there's just so much going on in the league and with some specific things that we wanted to get into. So
once again, of course, we have to talk about Kyrie Irving again, but it's the biggest news in the NBA and in sports right now, so has to be talked about.
Yep.
Last we talked, he had another chance, a second chance to, take a little responsibility and,
apologize.
Apologize. And he was combative, saying he didn't have a platform.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, I kind of expected after the blowback from that smarter minds would prevail, but there are no smarter minds here. And so then he triples down on it and just won't, first of all, he's kept away from the media for a couple of days and then he comes back out and he won't back off on it. He's asked point blank, let's just play the clip.
Anti-Semitic. Again, I'm going to repeat. I don't know how the label becomes justified because you guys ask me the same questions over and over again. But this is not going to turn into a spin around cycle, questions upon questions. I told you guys how I felt. I respect all walks of life and embrace all walks of life. That's where I sit.
I think what people want to hear, Joe, is just a yes or no on that question. Yes or no.
I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from. I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from.
Okay, so here was the problem with that, and it's not just the yes or no question it was a layup. For a guy who's supposed to have great handles and a great finisher at the rim, he sure can miss a wide open layup. It's right there. Just do it. Even if the problem with his answer there in particular is what he's inferring is that they're the true Israelites by saying that. Like he relates because they're the true Israelites. So what he's saying is actually anti-Semitic in itself.
Right.
And he's completely clueless to understand this.
Yeah.
He's still going. So basically, he 100% believes the gist of that documentary, if we call it that.
Right. Well, and it makes any apology or anything he says afterwards, because we know there's been a lot of news since then. It makes that kind of disingenuous to me because I feel that he doesn't feel he did anything wrong. I don't feel he's learned anything.
He doesn't at all.
Right.
So after that came out, Adam Silver puts out a statement for the league saying he's upset that there wasn't an unqualified apology because it's a phony. There was no apology. And what's interesting is, Adam Silver's Jewish. And I actually think some people came down on the league a little bit, saying the league should have been hard on him right at the get-go. And I think Adam Silver, being Jewish, made him want to not just storm right into it because it would come off personal. I think that's his reasoning for kind of taking a light touch on this to begin with. But then, he said, well, I'm going to talk to Kyrie next week. We're going to talk about this. Following that statement from the NBA, the Nets then put out a statement saying Kyrie is suspended. Over the last several days, he hasn't shown any understanding. It's a pretty harsh press release.
It is.
Right?
It is.
And bravo to the Brooklyn Nets for doing that. They're like, Jesus, you've had so many chances to just straighten the ship and write
too many, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah.
They could have stepped in earlier, but
really, you still can't do it.
Right.
And so he's suspended a minimum of 5 games, and
without pay.
Right.
And
that finally got Kyrie's attention.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's at this point, and shortly after that, last night, he puts out an apology on Instagram saying all the stuff he should have said in the first place.
Right.
But it's like, clearly he doesn't believe it.
Right.
So it's like, no, he's clearly, I mean, he's anti-Semitic. He believes this crap. So he put that apology, but it's too little too late. And I believe the Brooklyn Nets response was, that's good, but we're not done with this yet. And you need to talk to the people at the Anti-Defamation League, which we didn't even mention how bad that was, that they set out to set a meeting with him and he sent his people. He didn't even go. And then he's like, oh, $500,000 money donation, just trying to buy him off, basically.
You heard that they refused
and they
that
turned
money,
it down.
right?
They turned it down. They didn't initially, but after the last clip that we just showed, after that, they're like, no, turn this money down. You're not buying this off,
Right.
Kind of in poor taste, not even showing up and then just thinking, well, let's throw some money at those Jews. They like money. Like, just he does not get it.
The whole thing is in poor taste, and his whole approach to handling the situation, and honestly, I think it makes the NBA look bad. It makes the Brooklyn Nets organization look bad. I think Steve Nash, was good. Did a good move getting out of there, because it's just a mess. I think KD wishes he got out of there. It's really bad, and
this has to be the most dysfunctional organization of all time during this couple year stretch. I can't think of anything else like it.
I mean, with the talent they had, and
at least in the post cocaine era, I'm thinking like the cocaine Dallas Cowboys and the crazy stuff.
Right.
But,
yeah.
In the modern era, this is just crazy dysfunction. And actually, that cocaine Cowboys team, they were winning games. So what they've won one playoff series, I believe, the Brooklyn Nets, since KD and Kyrie joined. Yeah, and very close to beating Milwaukee. That KD thing, but game's a game and whatever.
Right.
So I will say, in terms of being a bad look for the NBA, I had low expectations for Kyrie anyway. I was not a fan. He's been full of it for years. Just this false enlightenment, for a so-called beacon of light, he is one dim bulb, And what I find more concerning is that all the players in the league have been dead silent about it. Now, ex-players, Barkley, Shaq, they went in on it. Kareem went in on it hard. And I appreciate the ex-players calling it out. But the lack of, there's only one player in the league actively who has done anything, said anything, was Robin Lopez just shared Kareem's statement about it, his Substack. So that's the only active player in the entire league who has stepped up and said anything. And I'm trying to figure out, there's a couple aspects here. First of all, what the rest of the league should do is Kyrie Irving is vice president, one of several vice presidents of the Players Association. They should remove him from that post immediately.
Oh, 100%.
Not to mention, we have a CBA coming up. And by the way, I do think part of the reason the rest of the league, the players, haven't come out is they are trying to present unity leading into next season's CBA negotiations.
Standing behind
I think
players,
that's part of it. Yeah. And they try and do that, but it's not a good look, especially when, the NBA was somewhat the face of the Black Lives Matter movement, at least from a sports point of view. Understandably, 80% of the league is Black or African American. During the bubble,
there's a lot of
and so, a lot of NBA haters, and I would also say racists, like to point out, they're like, well, the NBA makes a lot of money from China, and look what China is doing with concentration camps. They only care about, what's Black people back home. They don't care about the oppressed elsewhere. And that's always kind of been a whataboutism type of argument because, well, of course, they're going to care more about what's happening in our country and in their communities and what they, I'm talking about the Black players, grew up dealing with and deal with day to day, all that. So, of course, they're going to care more about that. I'm not a fan of the whataboutism. But in this case, we're talking about many Jewish Americans, and this is at home that we're talking about. So the silence in this case comes off as wildly hypocritical.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, let's be honest. If a white NBA player said something anti-black in the same realm that Kyrie's doing towards the Jews, oh my God, he would have been suspended within 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I think. And I think I kind of feel like letting Kyrie go this far in the first place with all these chances to do it and not just come down hard on him is racist in itself. It's like, oh, dumb black guy doesn't know any better. You know, that's what it comes off as. It's like the lack of equal accountability I find that to be insulting. I think that's an aspect of this that also feels gross. The whole thing's gross.
It's bad. It's a bad look. It's a bad. I think it's just a bad mark on the NBA that it happened, that it was allowed to persist for this many days, and like you said, it's a good thing that the Nets did what they did. Finally stepped up, gave him the suspension. And yeah, I mean, a question I've heard bandied about is, do you think that this is that was the last game he's played for the Brooklyn Nets? You think he will actually do the amends and beyond the apology? I'm talking about actually going forth and like doing what needs to be done and the team trusting him and all that. Do you think there's any chance that gets mended?
I think so. Just out of his trade value has never been lower.
Right.
And rumor has it, I think I heard this on Zach Lowe's podcast, that Kyrie's been on the trade block all season so far, just the last couple of weeks behind the scenes quietly.
Yeah.
And they've already been trying to trade him. And then this just deep sixes his value.
He's toxic. Yeah. It's toxic.
And value. So if you're an NBA GM, you got to leave emotion out of it. And you have to say, well, he's still a talented basketball player, at least on offense. And so he's still a valued asset, and we cannot sacrifice that asset over our feelings. You got to treat it like a business, because it is a business. So you're not going to let him go for 10 cents on the dollar. He's all time, they're not going to buy high and sell low.
Right.
And I mean, I wonder what his trade value would be right now with all the toxicity around him. I mean, and this might be the end of the Jewish anti-Semitic part of it. Kyrie can't help himself. There will be something else. He cannot help himself.
I don't doubt it. I can't put anything past him now.
I can't see him going to any team except the Lakers out of desperation, because he's been with LeBron before, and they're like, well, LeBron kept him under wraps, for a good while, and we're successful with it. Right. I don't know, but if Brooklyn wants to take on a Westbrook contract, either, so.
Like one team's
I think he's going to end up
for another team's trash.
He's going to end up playing for, and actually Westbrook's played better his last couple games.
Yes.
But I think Kyrie will end up playing for the Nets again in a week or two, and they're just going to try and sweep it under the rug or just try and move on from it, because they don't really have any choice.
Right. They're in a bad place.
On the other hand, as a GM, you could say, maybe I will take 10 cents on the dollar, because we're not re-signing him as a free agent.
Right.
So you're going to lose him anyway.
Might as well cut bait sooner than later.
That team's not winning a title this year. No way. No chance.
Even with him back, they're not.
Yeah, no chance. So maybe you do sell for 10 cents on the dollar, because you're like, well, at least we can get something and move on from this drama. And he's going to walk at the end of the year anyway.
Right.
So I could see that too. Just get what you can and move on. I think that would be the smart move. But there's probably not a lot of suitors right now. For his services, Yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna we'll see what happens.
I would say if he didn't make the apology as quickly as he did, I would have said he's done there, right? Like if this drug out like a week, maybe or more, or maybe he just never apologized. I would say he's done in Brooklyn. The fact that he put that out, I think, is like kind of making a step towards it. But I don't know.
I do appreciate that the Nets didn't say, "Oh, great." They're like, "No, this isn't over yet."
Right. Well, because
they need to talk to some people, and
they've been bending over backwards for him anyways. They did it on the vaccine mandate. When he basically sat out and said, he wasn't going to get vaccinated, and they said, well, you can't play any games then, and then they said, okay, well, now you can play road games, right? They kind of concealed on that, and I think he's taken advantage of that. I think he's taken advantage of teams, and
you give him an inch and he'll take a yard.
Right. The fact that he's talented and that teams want him on the court and that they'll be willing to do anything to do that is, it's tough.
And, another aspect of all this drama that's happened with Steve Nash leaving, we also have to ask, is KD a problem with coaching? He was a big fan of Scotty Brooks back in the Thunder days.
Right.
And he comes to the Warriors and got along with Kerr for a while, but it was very clear by that last season and even a little before them that him and Kerr were butting heads. And he said stuff since then that made it clear, like, he had issues with Kerr, which is Kerr's like one of the most laid back, chill coaches with a great philosophy that's clearly been successful, helped get you 2 rings, KD, and he has to move on. And everyone blames Draymond for KD leaving. We know there's a host of reasons, but he was not getting along with Kerr at the end. That was well documented. Comes to Brooklyn, Kenny Atkinson, who's a good coach. I think the reason that KD and Kyrie forced Atkinson out was he was still insisting on starting Jarrett Allen over DeAndre Jordan because he's the better player. It was.
Right.
And so they fire Atkinson and they bring in Steve Nash, and then DeAndre is starting. And then they ship, to make it even easier, they ship Jarrett Allen out of town, who, by the way, is now an all-star center.
Baller. Yeah.
All-star center.
Actually regretting that.
And then, people were harsh on Nash, but people forget he was, before the pandemic when they won that first playoff round and they were against Milwaukee, everyone was really singing Nash's praises as a coach for how he was handling the rotations and all that. And then all of a sudden, he just sucks. And it's like, no, I don't think it's that simple. And, the whole mutual parting ways thing, I think is true, because you probably saw that quote where Nash said, they're just not responding to me.
I didn't see that.
That was the night of the game before.
Wow.
After the game, the night before.
He actually said that?
He said, they're just not responding to me.
Wow.
What's the point? And
yeah, he felt like he lost the team, right?
Yeah, because the team is crazy, So that's not on Nash. But I mean,
no.
KD kind of has a coaching conflict issue here. It feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's.
They weren't firing Steve Nash for Kyrie. They were doing it for KD, who asked to have Nash fired in the offseason.
Right. Yeah, that's not a good look. I think he's such a fickle guy, a fickle player, right? I think he's otherworldly talented, right?
Obviously.
Like, I mean, he basically, if you have him on your team, you're a contender. But I think he's not really a great system guy. Like, I just think he doesn't like feeling like he's boxed into a system. Even when, like you said, Golden State, that's a great system, and he got his points and he got finals MVPs and everything else. I feel like he feels like he's good enough that he doesn't need that to be put into that box, which, that's
a great player.
That's a flaw.
But his ultimate flaw is his ego.
Right. It is, and he could have,
he's the antithesis of Steph Curry, who's all about winning.
Right.
He'll sacrifice some of his own numbers.
Well, and that bugged
KD.
him, Yeah, that he wasn't that. It was Steph's team. It will always be Steph's team. But he couldn't ride along in that spotlight with him. It has to be his team, right? It has to be KD's the one in charge. And which, to me, I'm like, to make the decision to go from that to a Brooklyn team with Kyrie. It's just like, you messed up, buddy. But
so mentioning Steph's team, let's talk about our Warriors. And
do we have to?
Yeah, I know. They're now 3-6. They haven't won a game on the road yet.
Yep. 0-4 on this road trip.
Yeah, they've been close games. Their defense is atrocious. And it's interesting. Their offense hasn't looked great, but they actually they're scoring the highest points per game in the league, actually.
Yeah.
But they have to because the defense has been so bad. You know, they lost last night to to Orlando, 130 to 129. You're like, oh, they only left 130 tonight. So, and what's concerning is, and we've already talked about how, well, Steve Kerr is putting a huge emphasis on the young players and giving them lots of minutes, and not just giving them minutes. He's doing a lineup with like Poole, Wiseman, JaMychal Green. He's not as young, but Moody. Yeah. But he's doing it, and he'll have Steph, Clay, and Draymond all on the bench at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's literally like we're throwing the B squad out there for stretches of every game. And I appreciate that Kerr's trying to throw them in the fire and figure it out. Mm-hmm. But he even said after last night's loss, yeah, you know, we've been doing this and experimenting with it, and I think it's time we have to make some changes because the West is deep and they're 3-6. They're already pretty well behind it. It's one thing if you're leaning around 500, but you know, they lost to a couple teams that they should kill so far on this road trip.
Steph had 39 points on 22 shots last night.
That's the other thing is
that never
Curry
happens.
is putting up numbers similar
Clay
to his
played well.
Curry is putting up numbers similar to his MVP seasons. He is playing great. So if your best player is playing like an MVP and you're losing games like this, I'm a little concerned. I'm sure we can clean it up with different rotations. Stop doing the like hockey line type of bench roster changes that Kerr's doing, which he acknowledged in the post-game presser. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned. Jordan Poole got that contract. He's had some hot flashes where he looks great and he's hustling on defense, but overall he's been having trouble leading that second unit. That second unit is you sent me the stat last night. When Curry is on the floor, the Warriors have the best offensive rating in basketball. When he is off the floor, I believe it's 118.8 per 100 possessions. So that would be the best offense in basketball right now. When he is off the floor, it's like 92, which is one of or the worst offenses in basketball. Or just
that's where the games are lost. That's where the games are lost, right? As soon as he's off the court, as soon as he puts that B squad. I think I saw overall he's like plus 40 on the floor, and the Warriors are like negative 90 when he's off. It's a huge discrepancy. Yeah, right.
So anyway, that's concerning. We need to figure out those non-Steph minutes. And
there's a lot of things concerning. I mean,
James Wiseman. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
I saw an analysis. The advanced metrics right now have him as the worst player in the league.
Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't look good.
I think it's
still so early, and we've seen the potential, but man, he needs help out there. Like we can't throw him into the fire that much because it's
a
not
bit
working.
misleading. Because I think if you look at talent and skill, and like he's obviously very skilled, right? Like we've seen a lot of flashes from him. We know he's capable of scoring and all of that, but I think in this system, with the other players that he's being asked to play with, you know, it's really bad, and his defense is
he's
almost unplayable.
He's a huge defensive liability. I think he has the worst defensive. He has the worst defensive rating in the league right now.
Yeah, I believe it.
And he's 7-1. He's 7-1.
Right.
He also needs to, as a 7+ footer, pull down some rebounds. No excuse.
Yeah, he's averaging about 4 rebounds a game, I want to say.
And just stretches where it's like
in 20 minutes.
A couple Warriors around the basket, he's right there.
Yeah.
And he's not pulling the ball down.
Yeah, I don't know. With him, it doesn't seem like there's a innate feel for the game. And it could be that, you know, he missed a lot of time. He's still getting back. You know, there's a lot of excuses to give him because, you know, he didn't play much his senior year, I believe.
He didn't.
Right. So, you know, there's some things that I think definitely have hindered him, but there's also a lot of concern that is he ever going to get to that player that we need while Steph, Clay, and Draymond are still in their primes or even still with the team?
Well, and the interesting part is,
how long do we have to wait? Right.
Well, and also last year the conversation was, would the Warriors keep those young players, or with Steph playing so well, would they make a trade and bring in a veteran or two and really bolster their roster? And they didn't have to last year, and they got through it, and they won a title. But now that they won that title like that with Steph leading the way, if these young guys are not, and some of them, like Wiseman, are going to be eligible for extension soon, and that's going to be a weird thing. If it's not looking like it's going to come together by January or so,
when do you pull the plug?
That's going to be a real conversation. Do we trade some of these young guys for a vet? So especially if Curry keeps playing at an MVP level, Draymond's actually looked pretty good overall.
Yeah.
And Clay's getting there. He didn't play all summer too, so people are going to forget. That's why he's rusty too. Yeah. So if that's happening, we're going to hear all about this conversation all over again. And while last year I was like, no, we were rolling fine how it is. We don't need to do it. This looks very different. And I feel like we're really missing Gary Payton II.
I was just going to mention him, even Otto Porter
and Otto Porter Jr. as well.
Yeah.
I mean, strangely, I think neither of them have played yet for their new teams. They've had injuries.
Right.
I do think this conversation is going to come up, and I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it. Last year, I was like, "Stay the course. This is good."
Right.
This year, Steph's 34, turning 35.
Can't waste a year like this.
I might be prone to. We got to keep Moses Moody. I like him for the future. Some team might trade a quality veteran that would fit with us for a couple of young experiments who still have potential.
Yeah.
And they could get minutes in a less pressured situation. Playing for the Warriors, they're getting everyone's best shot every night. That's a tough situation for some of the really young players. So we're going to have to see how it plays out. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think I'm going to feel very differently about it this year than I did last year. I might be leaning towards, let's make a trade. So,
and you know what? I think you're right. I think to judge, because I think it is still a little early to judge that, to make a bold move like that. Because Kerr did say that he's going to switch some of the rotations around. Maybe not do a platoon switch out.
Yeah, hockey lines. Yeah.
Right. Maybe have Clay and Draymond play with some of the young guys, right? Or you know what I mean, or something when you're not having Steph in, just for a little more stability. A little more shooting on the floor with them, some more experience. I think Dante DiVincenzo coming back is going to help. Not a ton. It's not like that's.
No, he looked around and have. He looked good early on.
He can defend. I think he's a veteran. Or at least a seasoned player. I'd like to see Kuminga play a little more. I don't know what's going on. He's in the doghouse.
Straight DNPs. Yeah.
I mean, to me, he's struggled a bit. I don't think he's played nearly as bad as Wiseman has. So I don't understand. I mean, I guess Wiseman is a big, and that's more in need. That position's more in need. But I'd like to see maybe a Looney, Kuminga lineup, right? You got Looney on the back end. You got Kuminga in there. I don't know. It's something.
Looney continues to be underrated. Looking at the Warriors plus minus, Steph's on top. Next best, Kevon Looney. He's playing great.
Believe it. Yeah. Well,
that's the other thing is been great. If Looney, who is a rock, he played every single game last season, can start to take on a few more minutes. This is where we come into.
It's where you get. It's
that worries. This is where we come into. Do we need James Wiseman? If Looney and Green can hold the middle together, and Looney is a great rebounder too. I'm just telling you, that's where James Wiseman becomes expendable in a trade potentially.
Right. You still got JaMychal Green. We got some other pieces that can kind of fill in.
Yeah, JaMychal Green started off nicely, and then he hasn't looked very good either.
Well, I think the problem is nobody's looked good in that lineup. Nobody's looked good in that 5-man rotation. I don't think it's completely his fault. I think he's covering for a Wiseman, right? You see him lot going over to Wiseman's guy. I mean,
that's also why you can't get too caught up in plus minuses, especially without a huge sample size. It's a great end of season stat or half season stat,
right?
But you got to not overreact. I mean, sometimes they're very honest and they do tell you the truth, but they can be misleading if you're always on the floor with guys who are just sucking it up and it's not your fault if you're covering your guy and doing your job, but someone keeps blowing it. So it's hard to tell.
You got Ty Jerome out there, and it's not his fault. I actually think he's played decently, but you got him with a bunch of young guys, right? And Jordan Poole, he's a good player. I mean, obviously he had a great year last year. I think he still is a good player. If you had him out there with the starters, he'd be playing excellent. but I think asking him to lead that kind of rotation is really tough. So we'll see. I don't know. I still have a feeling that they're going to pull it together, at least not be, on the outside of the playoffs looking in the way they are now, right? I feel like they're still going to be a top 4 team, ish in the West. And seeding for them doesn't matter so much. You'd like to stay out of the play-in tournament, obviously, but, it's about being healthy and figuring this stuff out come March and April. And they've got a lot of time till then, so see what happens.
Yeah. Elsewhere around the league, I said Curry's playing at an MVP level. So is Luka. Luka's killing it out there. Yeah. And then that was both of our picks. Yeah. But then we also said, and right now the front runner is clearly Giannis. He is.
Yeah. What are they? 7-0.
They're 7-0.
Yeah.
He's crushing the numbers too. He's highly efficient. He's playing out of his mind. So, obviously I would say, hey, well, best in the world last year was Steph because he took him all the way, led his team. But I feel pretty comfortable saying right now that the best player in the league is Giannis.
Oh, yeah.
He looks so good. He's just a force.
Absolutely. Yeah, and he's still young, I mean, he's what, 10 years into the league, but I mean,
if he wins another MVP, that's rare territory. That's 3.
Yeah, right.
And he's got the finals MVP and a chip. So
it'll be interesting to see how those votes go if things hold to where they are. I could see Luka still getting a lot of votes too because he's the new thing. You know what I mean? A lot of people are.
He doesn't have one yet.
Loving this game, right? So it'll be interesting.
See anything else basketball wise?
Yeah,
teams are still, since we last spoke, they're still kind of settling in.
Yeah,
to the season. James Harden out for a month.
Yeah, that's tough.
So we'll see how Philly does.
And I know it'll be a good opportunity for down, right?
Yeah, it'll be a good opportunity for Maxey. He's had a couple big games.
Yeah, right.
I really like him.
Yeah, he's good.
So a good chance for him to step up and show what he can do.
Mm-hmm.
And from some of their games that I watched so far, part of it, I kind of think they need to have Maxey on the floor less with Harden and have him run their second unit a lot because he's a pretty strong offensive force when he needs to carry the load. So I think Doc Rivers should probably pay attention to that. We'll see. So Steve Nash first fired. That was if you had a coaches to get fired pool, Nash would have been on the top to begin the season. I think Rivers is somewhere in that mix for sure. We'll see. I mean, who else would be on the hot seat, coaching wise? Whoever Brooklyn brings in, Ime Udoka, just because they like to just keep making drama and firing everybody. Yeah,
right. Man, who is in line to get fired? That's a good question.
By the way, if I was Brooklyn, I would have hired Quinn Snyder, who was the Jazz coach for all those years. Really good coach.
I don't think KD and Kyrie would have approved that. Talk about system guy. I'm just saying,
I know you're probably right. Well, hey, Udoka is all about defense, so I don't know how that's going to work in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
They don't have the players to do it.
Right. Oh yeah, that's going to be another train wreck. Absolutely.
Yeah. I guess there's probably not a lot of hot seat going on right now.
No, not too much. I think there's some bad teams, but they kind of knew they were going to be bad coming in.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll know a lot more, I think, within the next couple months where the standings are at and see how people are following in. So
I do want to pivot. We don't talk about baseball much because, I used to be a hardcore baseball fan. I still am. I still follow. It's just the interest has fallen off. But anyway, we had the World Series going.
Mm-hmm.
And the other night, the Astros starting pitcher had a no-hitter going. And he had thrown only 97 pitches. And they were up 5-0. And they pull him. And then a couple bullpen guys finish the game off. And it's a collective no-hitter. First ever in World Series history.
Wow.
And I think this is a great example of analytics killing baseball. I mean, you would have had, I think there's only been Drysdale had two other no-hitters in World Series history.
Mm-hmm.
So something fun and exciting was happening. You're up 5-0, so it's not like a 1-0 game. So you have some leeway. He's only thrown 97 pitches. Like, let him keep going. I mean, that's fun. Like, big fun moments. And baseball has gotten so ridiculous with their analytics and all that. Like, it's the World Series. He's got a no-hitter going. Let's go. I had it on in the background. I was like, wait, they're pulling him out.
Pulling him?
What? Maybe when they turn it off and change the channel.
How many innings was that in when they pulled him? You know? I'm just curious.
Later in the game. It was
okay. 6th or 7th inning, maybe something like that.
Let me pull up the box score.
Yeah, so he wouldn't have had to pitch that much more to finish it off. If he, you know.
I mean, he had only thrown 97 pitches. It's not like he was at 125.
Right.
So he'd been pretty efficient.
A hit or two in a row, maybe you pull him then. But yeah, that's pretty shocking.
Oh, you know what? I can't even pull it right now. But anyway.
Yeah, it's all good.
It was, I think it was like late in the 7th inning or something. Or maybe it was going into the 8th. It was late.
Yeah, I would.
So, I mean, he'd been efficient and rolling. And just, you know, that's no fun. Like, come on, let's go for it sometimes,
right.
You know?
Mm-hmm. I know I felt that way in basketball a couple times, you know, when Clay has 60 points in 3 quarters and gets pulled, you know, I get it. It's because they're up by, you know, however many points and you don't want to show people up. But like,
he was joking about that on.
Oh, I heard some
all the smoke on the All the Smoke podcast. And he's like, Steve, next, like, let me go for it. Like,
let me go,
60
right.
through 3 quarters in that game. You know, like he could have gone after Kobe's 82, 81, 82. You know, 82. For like the modern high number, the not Chamberlain era. So,
81.
Yeah, I know. Kerr was all about resting players and not grinding it out, or you're up by so much that you don't need to do that. But sometimes you got to let it go and go for it.
If it's for history, yeah.
Which, to be fair, he did let them do that to go for the 73 wins, which you could argue backfired.
Yeah.
But I still like that they got it. So that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's still a record. So, and you know, I don't think that was fully the reason that they didn't win that finals, but we don't need to relitigate that.
Yeah, we don't.
But yeah, it's that's an interesting. I did hear about the no hitter, but I didn't know all the politics behind him getting pulled out and stuff.
It ended up being him and then 3 bullpen pitchers.
Okay.
You know, for a couple outs here and there and whatever. So anyway, that's just no fun. Like, come on. Anyway.
Fix it up, baseball. Come on.
Okay. And all right. Well, thank you to you guys listening. Please subscribe on YouTube or other platforms.
Yep.
We would appreciate it. And we'll catch up soon. Probably do another episode in a couple of days next week.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right.